Thanks for joining us, everyone. Now, transport and logistics consultant Cecil Gabra has lauded government's decision to create separate ministries for transport and railways. President Akufo-Addo on Wednesday nominated 2 ministers to head the 2 sectors. This has since drawn some criticisms, with a section of the public describing the move as degenerating in duplication of functions and incurring extra costs. Mr. Gabra, however, explains to Joy Business the separation should rather ensure proper administration of the transport sector.
What we see at the moment in the past is that it's clumsy, where you have transport, railways, and then airlines all in one ministry. It's so clumsy. Now we need experts in this field. I do not think that creating it will even have an issue where we're going to spend a lot of money. I see it as creative in the sense that all those expertise that we need will concentrate on what we need to do in this country to move, especially the railway system, forward. At the moment, you look at the railway system, and I don't even call it a system. It's just too bad in this country. We have one-way railway system where it from Accra to Tema, and one also runs to Nsawam. But and if we have a multi-lane, which I believe can be constructed in this country by experts, then it should have a separate entity altogether. It should have a separate ministry, so that concentration level will be much more high. I believe strongly that if we are able to expand our railway system and have better coaches to run on them, that alone can reduce road crashes, which is quite high in this country, and also can reduce the traffic menace, can also reduce wear and tear of our vehicles, because we stay in traffic for hours. Many more people who live close to their office rather spend time driving. But if we have a railway system, and then a railway carries a lot of load, it's much more expensive from the beginning, but it's cheaper after all. Where we have a lot of people patronizing the railway system, it's going to go a long way to reduce the cost that we spend on transport in this country.
Meanwhile, President Akufo-Addo has also announced the creation of new ministry for aviation to focus on developing the sector. This will be headed by Cecilia Dapa. She shared some thoughts with Joy Business.
I believe we all know, as the President said, it is his wish and vision that Ghana becomes the hub, the preferred hub for the West African region, the ECOWAS region, and preferably the whole of Africa and Europe as well, and in general for serious travelers as well as leisure travelers.
Right. And then there are ongoing, airport projects across the country. The Volta region,
Sunyani is already there, and Kumasi has been rehabilitated, you know it, yes. And Accra, I think you've seen a lot of work done there as well.
The ones that are at the primary stage, what is the guarantee that you will see them through?
I guess we'll need a bit of time to look at what is existing, to appreciate what has been done before, then we'll plan the next step.
Someone asked why we are having a standalone aviation which should have come under the transport ministry.
I believe it's for emphasis and it's for effective developmental purposes, because once you zero in and scoop out a whole ministry out of a ministry with various agencies and units, then you are giving it special attention. That is exactly what the President intends to do. And that's exactly what I, as a minister designate, if by the grace of God I'm approved by Parliament, that's what the vision that will be carried out.
And still on ministerial appointments, former Managing Director of the Graphic Communications Group, Ibrahim Mohammed Awal, has been nominated as Minister Designate for Investment and Business Development. The founder of the Final newspaper also spoke with Joy Business.
You know, the private sector constitutes about 90% of businesses in this country. So the essence of the office is to help improve the capacity of the private sector so that they can deliver. If the private sector is productive, efficient, and competitive, the way to expand, create jobs, and employ the people. As you are aware, the employment level in this country is very high. And one of the campaign issues we had was employment. One of the biggest challenges facing this country is unemployment. So the private sector, the ministry is supposed to make sure that we capacitate the private sector, help them improve their businesses, expand the scope so that they can employ more people. But that way, we're improving the living conditions for the people and improving livelihoods. That's what we are about.
And what's the strategy to, deliver this?
It's several from. We need to ensure that we have a lot of investment in it. We need to ensure that the private sector has a lot of problems. Finance is key. Lack of capacity is another. So we need to make sure that we help train, help them access to funding, and then let them apply modern business practices and technology so that they can improve, expand, and then employ a lot of people. The young people, boys and girls in this country, need jobs. We can only do that through the private sector initiatives. That's what I want to do.
What about investment? I don't know whether that forms part of your role.
Investment and business development. We need to coordinate all the investments coming to this country. We need investment in infrastructure. We need investment in manufacturing, in ICT, and in services. So we are supposed to make sure that we coordinate all the investment programs of various ministries and governments and direct them to very critical, needed sectors of the economy so we can improve the country and improve the lives of the people. So it's a twin, we're starting on twin legs, bringing investment and improving the private sector for qualitative growth and employment.
All right, so some bit of information that might interest you about the Minister Designate for Investment and Business Development. He's 55 years old. He's an entrepreneur and a marketer. There you see him in your shots. He's currently the Chief Executive Officer of Marble Communications Group Limited, publishers of the Finder Group of newspapers, HMW Printers, Marble Consultants, and Marble Developers. Adjudged the Marketing Man of the Year 2009. Awal holds 3 master's degrees in various disciplines from different universities. He has worked closely with many companies, particularly with small and medium enterprises, where he offered consultancy services in the areas of business strategy management, marketing, and communications. Awal has also consulted for diplomatic missions, international development partners, as well as state institutions. Moving on now, and the Chief Executive of Dalex Finance, Ken Thompson, has challenged claims that the Finance Minister Designate Ken Ofori-Atta may encounter some initial challenges in his role because of his limited experience in the public sector. According to him, the minister's job goes beyond acquaintance with workings of the public sector.
The immediate past chairman of Parliament's Finance Committee, James Kluche Aveji, made the assertion even though acknowledging the track record of the Finance Minister Designate in the private sector. But Mr. Thompson explains to Joy Business the minister's leadership qualities instead is the most crucial.
When you have somebody who's a leader, his ability to succeed depends on the people he puts around him and his ability to take decisions, be able to see what the issues are, and be decisive and have a plan. So what is this issue of whether he's working in the public sector or private? I mean, what difference does it make? In any case, we need somebody who is there, who has pure private sector experience. We don't need some technocrat. What do they know about business? And unless you risk your own money, you don't know what you're talking about. So this business that he hasn't got public sector experience, so what? It's irrelevant. In any case, I mean, whatever model we're going to apply in Ghana, it's already been done. There's nothing we're going to do in this country that's not been done before. Just copy. I mean, and Ken is smart enough to copy if he has to.
He adds the designated minister's background in investment banking is only an added advantage rather than a silver bullet for the job.
But it's all got to do with common sense and how you apply it. What's it got to do with investment banking?
But you need to attract, much more resources into the country.
To you because they have confidence in you. That's what matters. Just because you're an investment banker doesn't mean...
Not just because he's an investment banker, but an experienced one with, networks and all that, if you like, looking at
how would his... even play on Ken's investment banking experience? How would play on Ken's ability to be able to build a business from scratch? He understands what it means. He understands what issues are. He understands what creating wealth is all about. He understands what policies are about. He understands how to incentivize. That's what's critical.
The finance minister designate Ken Ofori-Atta is a co-founder of DataBank with over 12 years of experience in investment banking.
Now, away from the new appointments to the oil sector, and Tullow Oil says it is working to reduce the time for the Jubilee oil field shutdown for this year. Now, according to the oil exploration firm, this move should help lessen the negative impact on the country's power supply. But could this assurance prevent the expected power crisis projected by some energy think tanks for this year? George Affe has more.
Tullow last year announced they will be shutting down the Jubilee oil field for more than 3 months from February to June this year. This is to help carry out some maintenance works on the turret bearing and equipment that aids the extraction of crude oil from the seabed in the Jubilee area. The announcement was expected to affect power supply badly, as most of the country's generating plants depended heavily on gas from the Jubilee field. This resulted in some energy think tanks projecting that the power crisis will come again this year, especially when the country is also struggling to raise the required funds to import gas. Tullow says it is hoping to do everything in its power to avert this. It has also announced that it is hoping to start exporting gas from the 10 oil field later this year. Average daily production of oil from the Jubilee field this year is pegged at 68,000 barrels a day, while 50,000 for the 10 oil field. Tullow has also indicated that the maritime border dispute between Ghana and Ivory Coast will resume from February 6th, whilst the ruling is expected in the last quarter of this year.
There are calls for the new government to pay more attention, especially to higher education, if its economic development agenda is to be effectively realized. This is against the backdrop of long-standing concerns that the country's tertiary institutions fail to churn out graduates with the skill set that meet the needs of industry.
The governing party in its 2016 manifesto and campaign emphasized its commitment to improve the business environment and thereby grow the economy. In an interview with Joy Business, Professor Charles Sanders, director for the Executive MBA at Lancaster University, explained the goal can be achieved if education is prioritized.
Education is essential. You can't develop an economy without educated people. And you can't develop the higher value aspects of an economy without educated people. So it's a fundamental basis for organisations that they need good people who know lots of things. And so that's a fundamental one, I would say. There's a stream of leadership thinking that says leadership actually starts in schools. So if you've got people in schools who are learning what they need to learn in school, but also learning to lead in school and learning to think critically in school, which is part of leadership, being able to ask the right question and think about issues. And that's where it starts. So in a sense, there are some leadership scholars who argue that by the time you get into companies, it's too late to start teaching people leadership. You need to start a lot younger than that. You need to have people coming out of schools who want to take the lead and who have the energy and the ambition in order to do that. So when I say education, it's all the way down. It's not just university level or executive MBA level or company training programs. It's getting into the schools and inspiring people to want to lead in the future.
Professor Charles Sanders has been speaking to Joy Business ahead of the school's NBA campaign for this year. He tells us more about the executive NBA program.
So our program is initially focused on leadership. So you will understand yourself more and understand what you need to lead the team that you're in or teams that you're looking for in the future. You will improve your quantitative skills. So if finance is not your strong option, you will understand accounting, you'll understand the books, you'll understand investment options for the future of the business that you're in. You will understand a little bit more about why people do what they do within an organization and how you can potentially manage that. And you will understand more about how a business actually works in terms of the operations, the transfer of goods and services from the creation and transfer from suppliers, so you'll understand that kind of logistical side of things a lot better. But I guess the key thing that you learn from an executive MBA is how all of this comes together, because knowing the individual areas is important.
The executive MBA program was launched by Lancaster University in 2014 to afford professionals advance their career to management and leadership level.
You're still watching Business Live. We want to take you back to the recent appointments made now to the agricultural sector, where the Agricultural Workers Union of the TUC has lauded the nomination of Dr. Afriyie Akoto as Minister-Designate for Agriculture. The nomination of the Minister-Designate has sparked controversy among some civil society organizations in Ghana. For instance, Food Sovereignty Ghana, they are challenging the nomination of the Minister-Designate following suggestions that he is for the legalization of genetically modified foods, GMOs. There's more in this report.
When approved by Parliament, Dr. Afriyie Akoto takes over the Food and Agriculture Ministry in the wake of huge challenges facing the agric sector. But his credibility as minister has been questioned by some civil society organization, Food Sovereignty Ghana, who claims support for genetically modified foods disqualifies him for the ministerial post.
Food Sovereignty Ghana has raised many issues with this GMO agenda, calling on President John Mahama to rethink it, and we never heard a word against GMOs from Dr. Afriyie. And you see, what is worrying is that he's going to be the key stakeholder in this sector. In the man's own words, he said this on TV3 in 2014, that Americans have been eating GMO for 28 years and they are not dying, and so there's nothing wrong with GMOs in Ghana. Ghanaians are not dying from GMOs, despite the fact that the chickens that we eat are fed with GMO corn, and some of the GMOs come through our porous pots, but Ghanaians are not dying. These are the words of this gentleman. We are trying to draw the attention of Ghanaians that this is not something that we should gloss over. We should have an open debate about it. The fact that most Ghanaians do not know about it, and yet we've passed a Biosafety Act, reflects a lack of engagement of the people. And if Dr. Akoto is going to be a representative of the people, then he must accept that his position currently on GMO is not what all Ghanaians share.
The issue of GMOs is of grave concern to the General Agricultural Workers Union, GAWU. As the General Secretary of the union, Edward Karewe, says the invasion of Ghana's markets with GMO foods has not just reduced the quality of foods in Ghana, but also put the health of Ghanaians at stake. Meanwhile, GAWU is hopeful that the minister-designate has the capacity and experience to man the food and agriculture sector.
He's also so much experience such that he will be able to combine the theory and practice, and then relations, how to deal with civil society, how to deal with other stakeholders, is the being that would help him to prosecute the agenda that the government wants him to do. It's not just about the expertise, because the work that he's going to do, he needs a lot of consensus building. He needs people to understand the policy of the government. And being an outgoing parliamentarian, he has had that type of encounter. And not only in Parliament, but interacting with civil society.
Parliament's vetting committee is most likely to see the minister-designate state his stance on GMO foods once vetting begins on January 20th.
You're watching Business Live. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. Time now for the business agenda.
Welcome to the very first edition of the Business Agenda for the year. It is powered by Joy Business. And we begin the year with a call for government to take urgent steps to address the phenomenon of non-performing loans. Financial consultant Charles Mensah wants government to institute policies that would address the phenomenon and ensure that the indebtedness of these bulk oil distribution companies to banks does not recur. Most of these banks have not been able to settle their debt. They default, and this has created a lot of problems. Charles Mensah believes it's about time government instituted some punitive measures to ensure this is addressed.
Per the Bank of Ghana rules, once the client is not servicing the debt, you have to take steps to make provisions and all those ones in your books or in your books. So, and I know that some of the banks try to find a way to prevail on the client that they should pay some amount and then they will reinstate the loans, just to go behind the Bank of Ghana rules of that if it's not servicing, do something about it. So they are trying that. But be as it may, I think that there should be some effort to pay, you know, if it's government project, there should be some effort here, because you see, the more the thing delays, the worse for us. We need to have a trigger. We have to say January 2017 or January 2018 or sometime like that. From this date, we have a trigger. No compromise. Because softwares are there to do it. And that's what we should do. And then government then can be punished. If you decide that you will not pay contractors, then the loan or the debt should attract a penal charge.
So you heard financial consultant Charles Mensah there, and I'm sure you're wondering what reaction there would be to this call. Now, Nana Otuo-Champong, banking consultant, disagrees punitive measures could be adopted to address this phenomenon. For him, if this is done, the cost would only be passed on to the end user. He rather wants the bulk oil distribution companies to explore other means of raising funds so that they will be able to honor their debts in good time.
If you take the NPL, which is the non-performing loans portfolio of the banks, more than 70–80% of that portfolio is to government. That is in the recent one. It was to do with the import of energy, fuel, to help the economy. So if you levy charges, governments are not in business, so all they will do is to pass on those charges back to the consumer. So in Ghanaian parlance, you said, did you go or did you come? You know, so I think it's an area that we need to look at. And again, the discipline comes in. If you are going to import, do you have the money to finance the import? If you don't have the money, then you don't import. If it's an essential necessity, which is what this was, then you have to somehow find the money. The money can be found if you are creating wealth. And if you are not creating wealth and sharing the little bit that you have, then you get into the situation that we found ourselves. So as far as the bulk of the non-performing loans are concerned, as I said, it's with government. So you can't always put it on the customers that they have borrowed and intentionally don't want to pay.
Nana Otuo-Champong is a banking consultant. Do make a date with us next week for another edition of the Business Agenda. It is powered by Joy Business.
And that was Kuku Aban bringing us the business agenda. Now, if you followed the president's inaugural speech, you may have heard him mention that Ghana is open for business. Well, we captured the thoughts of MD for HFC Bank, Robert Lehant, in our interview of the day.
Well, you know, I think the finance minister designate is eminently qualified. I think he has run a successful business in the private sector. And I therefore am looking forward to working with him, and I look forward to working closely with him in moving the banking sector forward.
Any expectation one would ask in terms of the banking sector? I mean, one of the senior members in the Bankers Association as well. What are you looking forward in terms of the minister, policy-wise and all those things, to help grow the sector, which is seen as a critical backbone of the economy? Well, you know, one thing I'm very hopeful for the year. I mean, at the inaugural speech of the new president, he talked about Ghana being open for business. And Ghana being open for business, the financing and the finance sector played a very important part in it. So I am very heartened by the fact that the government is going to be looking at the whole environment. The fact that the government is going to be supporting business is a step in the right direction.
And that's our show tonight. Thanks for watching. My name is Daryl Kwao. There's more business news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business.